Virginia Democratic Congressman James Walkinshaw joins me now. He also serves on the House Oversight Committee. Congressman, good to see you. We'll get to redistricting in a second. It matters in the Commonwealth of Virginia, lots of other jurisdictions nationally. But I mentioned you're on the House Oversight Committee. So tell me what you expect to hear when former Attorney General Pam Bondi, who had tried to delay this, appears before the committee May 29th about the Epstein matter.
Well, I think she tried to avoid it completely, and thankfully we held her feet to the fire. We filed contempt charges this week, and I think that led to her finally agreeing to come in. And I want to hear who made the decisions to illegally redact files that were illegally redacted, who made the decisions not to fully release the files as the law required, what conversations, if any, took place between Todd Blanche and Pam Bondi, or Pam Bondi and President Trump, about which files to redact and which files not to redact. Look, the Department of Justice violated the law with respect to the release of the files. They're in violation of the Oversight Committee's subpoena, and she was Attorney General while those violations took place. She's going to have to answer for that.
Congressman, you said it was a slap in the face for King Charles III not to meet with survivors of Jeffrey Epstein while he was making his trip to America. Did you have a higher expectation the king would visit with survivors or President Trump?
Well, I don't think President Trump ever will. I had hoped that King Charles would take advantage of the opportunity to sit with some of the survivors who wanted to meet with him so that he could reassure them that from his perspective, there would be transparency and accountability in the UK for anyone who violated the law or violated the rights of those women and girls, even if it included his brother. I think that was a missed opportunity. We should note, we're talking about Pam Bondi. She also had refused to meet with survivors in the wake of her testimony before Congress several months ago.
Congressman, I want to ask you about the war costs. $25 billion said by the Pentagon yesterday. Our CBS News reporting today has said that's only half the war costs so far with Iran, up to $50 billion. Your evaluation of that number?
Well, one, it's outrageous that the administration and Secretary Hegseth this week have not been honest with Congress, or more importantly, the American people, about the true costs of this war. And the American people know that they're the ones paying the costs, not just in their taxpayer dollars that are being spent day in and day out there, but in higher gas prices, higher fertilizer prices, higher home interest rates, all because of Donald Trump's war of choice in Iran. So they need to come straight with the American people, let us know how much this is costing, and then Congress should make the decision, in my view, to cut off the funding for this unauthorized, reckless war in Iran.
I mentioned redistricting. Voters in Virginia approved a new map in that Commonwealth. It has now been challenged before the state Supreme Court. How do you expect that to be resolved? And what is your overall take, Congressman, on the arms race of redistricting that's now been given even more fuel by the Supreme Court's decision yesterday?
I expect the Virginia Supreme Court to uphold the will and the decision of Virginia voters and uphold the new map that Virginia voters voted to implement. With respect to redistricting across the country, obviously yesterday's decision from the Supreme Court lights a match on that redistricting war. And I would say that Republican politicians in the South now have a choice. They can continue to raise the stakes, and Democrats will counter. We could draw a map of California or New York that eliminates probably every Republican that represents those states in Congress. I don't think that would be a healthy thing for the country, just like it's not a healthy thing for the country for Republican politicians to eliminate Democratic districts that are held by members of the Congressional Black Caucus here in Congress. So the option, what we should do, is join hands. Republicans should join us in a ban on partisan gerrymandering nationally for congressional districts. We could do that before the 2028 elections and put an end to this redistricting war.
On this program last night, Pennsylvania Democratic Senator John Fetterman said he doesn't understand why Democrats cannot side with the Trump administration in pursuit of forcing Iran to give up its pursuit of a nuclear weapon and finish the job. Those are his words, not mine. How do you respond to that?
Well, I'd like to hear Senator Fetterman's plan to do that, just like I'd like to hear Donald Trump or Secretary Hegseth's plan to do that. There is no credible plan to get Iran to give up their nuclear weapons. I would love to see that. I would love to see a negotiation that leads to that result. That's not where we are. We're in the same negotiating position, perhaps a weaker negotiating position today than we were before the war. They're negotiating around the same elements. Is it a 5-year suspension or a 20-year suspension of their nuclear program? The only difference is they closed the Strait of Hormuz, and Donald Trump's under more pressure now than he was before the war. So we're farther away from a deal to eliminate their nuclear program than we were 2 months ago.
What are your constituents telling you about gas prices?
That they're too damn high. Gas prices in Virginia have eclipsed $4 a gallon. Diesel prices are higher. They're sick and tired of paying for Trump's war in Iran and Trump's tariffs, because the high gas prices are on top of high grocery costs, high costs for parents who are getting ready to buy back-to-school supplies or new clothes for their kids for the next school year. All of those costs are piling up on Virginians, and they're sick and tired of it.
I mentioned in the open to this program, Congressman, that Democrats did not get what they sought to get in the standoff over DHS funding, meaning legislatively drafted and imposed changes in immigration enforcement tactics. But personnel did change. Kristi Noem, Todd Lyons, Gregory Bovino. Was that worth it?
Well, look, from my perspective, Democrats didn't force a shutdown of DHS. Republicans needed some of our votes. And Democrats like me said, if you need my vote to fund the Department of Homeland Security, you got to listen to my priorities and put some of these reforms in the statute. We didn't accomplish that in large part because of one guy, Stephen Miller, in the White House who doesn't want it to happen. We're going to continue to fight that. We might have to take that fight to the ballot box and try to convince the voters who I think are on our side on this issue that we want common sense reforms. ICE and CBP should operate like our local and state law enforcement without masks, with real use of force standards, with real professionalism that they haven't shown.
Virginia Democratic Congressman James Walkinshaw, appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.